Ask Mr. Gurcharan Das first. When you heard what the Prime Minister said, particularly about, the political critics painting a very negative and distorted picture of the economy, would you say that that's partly true, or was he just whitewashing the UPA's failures in the last 1 year? Because when you look at the figures, the fact is that growth is down, it's at a 10-year low, you have high inflation, and we are in the midst of a serious economic crisis where the rupee is the worst performing currency in Asia as well. So those numbers speak for themselves.
Well, the fact is that this government has very little credibility. We all wish that they had done what they just started doing in the last 6-9 months for the last 9 years. This government made a false trade-off between equity and growth. They assumed that growth was our God-given right and it would continue. So they took their eyes off the ball of things that were producing growth, like infrastructure, and all the energies of the government went into creating giveaway programs. And that is really began with a fundamental problem. And now the problem they face of credibility is that people believe that reforms really only help the rich. They don't help the poor. They never sold the reforms. They never told people that there's a difference between being pro-market and pro-business. Pro-market means you create a competitive order, a rules-based capitalism, which helps everybody, lowers cost, raises quality of products. But on the other hand, crony capitalism is the result of being pro-business. Now this is, Margaret Thatcher used to spend 80% of her time selling the reforms and only 20% doing the reforms.
So you're saying they had a PR problem?
So there's a crisis of confidence.
So they've had a PR
crisis
problem?
Of confidence because, no, it's not just PR, because their actions also, they've just woken up on the reforms in the last 6 months. For the last 9 years they slept. And the fact that numbers were good were partly the result of the reforms that took place between 91 and 2004. And after 2004 you stopped reforming.
Okay, let me get Tavleen Singh on that. Let me get Tavleen Singh in on that. What did you make of the speech then? Did you feel that, in a sense, when I heard it this morning, it was a bit like deja vu, because I looked at what the Prime Minister told CII in April this year. That time also he said that, there are many impediments affecting the implementation of infrastructure projects. There are many projects that have been stuck for want of regulatory clearances. Decision making has slowed down. And he said the same thing today. But what stopped this government from taking those decisions?
Well, I think maybe the Prime Minister thinks he's a consultant to his own government. Because the fact of the matter is that he speaks like this, but does nothing to improve, to take off from what Gurcharan Das was saying just now. You have to improve the investment climate, not just by making speeches, but by showing some action. Now, if you change the rules of business midway, halfway through, who's going to come here? Today, according to the Wall Street Journal, major investors are leaving because they don't want to invest in a country where, even if they can take a business risk, they can't take a political risk. And you've changed the rules in telecom. 1 minute you pay this much tax, and in the next minute you pay another kind of tax. You can't do that. And the thing is that the Prime Minister has been saying that we need foreign direct investment for infrastructure building. So, I totally agree with what Gurcharan Das said. They should have been doing this for the past 9 years. The other thing that they haven't done to improve, if you want to improve the investment climate, pay the people who've already done projects for the government. Thousands of crore rupees are, in a backlog. The banks are not lending. So, I really don't know what the Prime Minister thinks he's doing, other than a consultancy job to the government of India.
Prasenjit, I know you totally disagree with the approach about whether necessarily having more FDI is the answer to India's economic problems. But the fact is, that we do need that. We do need investment in this country. We need domestic investment. We need foreign investment. Now, when you look at the PM talking about the UPA's report card and comparing it with the NDA's, as a third party here, who do you think stood better?
No, first of all, I think that there are two aspects to it. I think that the NDA, if you compare the economic performance of the NDA regime and the UPA regime, I don't think that there has been much of a difference, frankly, if you go by numbers. You know, on some fronts it was better, and I think that if you compare it with the UPA, on some issues, some heads they would have been done better.